Welcome to the All Sorts podcast. You know how it is, there's always so much to read and watch and listen to and never enough time.
Right. Like you make a list thinking, okay, this weekend I'll finally get to all that. And then,
Exactly. Then the weekend's over and you're like, well, maybe next week.
haha. Yeah, well, that's where we come in.
We do the deep dive for you. So today we're diving into the life of Miriam Makeba.
Oh, wow. Miriam Makeba. Now, there's a name that carries some weight.
She was more than just a singer. I think you'll find her story pretty captivating.
From what I've seen so far, she was a voice for South Africa, a symbol of resistance against apartheid.
Yeah, the sources really paint a vivid picture of her journey, from growing up in the townships all the way to the global stage.
Really fascinating how her early life kind of set the stage for everything that came after.
Born in 1932, right in Johannesburg, started singing in church choirs as a young girl.
Imagine that's where that powerful voice first started turning heads.
And it wasn't long before she was experimenting with different sounds, singing covers with groups like the Cuban Brothers.
Oh, wow, the Cuban Brothers.
Yeah, and the Manhattan Brothers, blending those South African rhythms with American jazz.
That fusion, almost like foreshadowing the global music scene we see today, right? Where artists blend everything together.
Absolutely. And hold on, don't forget about the Skylarks.
The Skylarks, an all-woman group in the 1950s.
Yeah, groundbreaking stuff, especially in South Africa.
Absolutely. Breaking barriers, paving the way for other female artists.
It seems like she was always pushing boundaries. But then, 1959 comes along, the anti-apartheid film Come Back Africa.
Oh, yeah, that was her big break, right? Introduced her to the world.
Catapulted her onto the international stage. Performances in Venice, London, even New York City.
New York City in the late 50s must have been a whirlwind for a young woman from South Africa.
I know, right? Did you read about her debut at the Village Vanguard?
Oh, yeah, legendary. Miles Davis and Duke Ellington were in the audience. Can you imagine?
Talk about music royalty.
Blown away by her performance. Singing in Xhosa and Zulu, weaving together those African rhythms with jazz. Something totally new.
Introducing the world to South African music and culture. I mean, they called her the most revolutionary new talent of the decade.
Wow, think about that. From church choirs to international audiences, praised by jazz legends. But as with any good story, there's a twist.
1960, the Sharpeville Massacre. She learns about her mother's death, but the South African government won't let her return for the funeral.
Heartbreaking. To lose your mother and then be barred from saying goodbye, it really underscores the cruelty of apartheid.
Exiled stateless. No passport, no country to call her own.
And yet other countries recognized her talent and her courage, offered her passports, welcomed her with open arms.
It makes you think about the power of art and music, right? Transcending borders, connecting with people.
And even in exile, she never stopped fighting for her people for justice.
She became a voice on the international stage, spoke out against apartheid at the United Nations, called for sanctions against the South African government.
Embodied that title of Mama Africa, amplifying the voices of the voiceless.
Did her music change during this time?
Definitely. A deeper sense of purpose emerges. You still hear that blend of African rhythms and jazz, but she starts introducing more Xhosa and Zulu songs.
Showcasing South African music to the world.
And then she wins a Grammy with Harry Belafonte.
An evening with Belafonte Makeba. That must have been incredible.
Think about the context, though. This wasn't just a musical achievement. It was a cultural victory. Proof that African music had a place on the world stage.
But her journey wasn't over. A new chapter of exile was about to begin.
1968, her marriage to Stokely Carmichael.
A prominent figure in the Black Power movement, right?
Yeah. That sparked a backlash here in the U.S.
The political climate was shifting. Things were getting complicated.
The FBI started keeping tabs on her. She was labeled a radical and extremist.
Even though she always insisted her music was about her heritage, not politics.
Sadly, perceptions had shifted. Her U.S. career came to a halt.
Concerts canceled, record deals dropped, banned from returning to the U.S.
Can you imagine? From rising star to ostracized and silenced.
It's a reminder of how quickly things can change. And how artists, especially those who speak out, can become targets.
So the U.S. closes its doors. She and Carmichael seek refuge in Guinea.
And they end up spending the next 15 years there.
It was a challenging period, but also a turning point in her career.
It seems like with every setback, she found a way to channel her experiences into something meaningful.
This time in Guinea allowed her to reconnect with the African continent in a profound way.
She started focusing more on performing throughout Africa, became a symbol of hope for newly independent nations.
A beautiful, full-circle moment, denied her own homecoming, but instrumental in the homecomings of others.
She truly embraced that title, Mama Africa. Her music became a soundtrack for the continent's journey.
And you know what's inspiring is that she never softened her stance against injustice.
Even when it meant alienating those in power.
She kept speaking truth to power, advocating for equality.
And then just a few years later, she's appointed Guinea's delegate to the United Nations.
From being labeled an extremist to representing a nation on the world stage, that's quite a journey.
It really speaks to the power of her message. Transcending those political labels, connecting with people on a human level.
Her music wasn't just entertainment. It was a way to share the stories, the struggles, the hopes of her people.
And then after 31 years in exile, she finally returns to South Africa in 1990.
Following Nelson Mandela's release, such a powerful moment, a true homecoming.
I can only imagine the emotions she must have felt. Relief, joy, a sense of closure.
It was a new era for South Africa. Her return was a symbol of healing and reconciliation.
Did her music change when she returned home?
Absolutely. Her album Eyes on Tomorrow captures that feeling of hope and possibility. A beautiful blend of jazz, R&B, pop, and traditional African music.
Reflecting her global journey and her connection to her roots, it's amazing what she accomplished. International acclaimed Grammy Award speaking at the UN.
And she establishes the Miriam Makeba Foundation, focusing on creating safe spaces for vulnerable girls and homeless children.
She was a vocal advocate for campaigns against drug abuse and HIV/AIDS. Always working to build a better future for South Africa.
A true global icon, but always grounded, always connected to her roots.
Mama Africa. And you know what else is remarkable?
What's that?
Throughout her life, she held 9 passports and was granted honorary citizenship in 10 countries.
Wow. Talk about a global impact, connecting with people across cultures and borders.
But even with all her achievements, there were personal struggles and tragedies, too.
Of course. Life is never without its challenges.
She never gave up, though. Never stopped singing. Never stopped fighting for what she believed in.
That's the essence of her legacy, isn't it? Resilience, determination, an unwavering belief in hope.
Her story is full of these aha moments, things that just surprise you. Did you know that after she was allowed back into the U.S., she was on The Cosby Show?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. It shows how versatile she was, moving between activism and popular culture.
Always sharing her message.
Right.
It's almost like exile, as difficult as it was, amplified her message and solidified her as a global icon.
Interesting point. It forced her to confront injustice on a larger scale, connect with a wider network of activists and artists.
Okay, we've talked about her music, her activism, her incredible life. But what about her style, her image? She was a true icon.
Absolutely, a fashion icon, a trendsetter. She embraced her natural beauty.
Challenged Eurocentric beauty standards. Refused to straighten her hair, wore traditional African jewelry.
Celebrated her heritage. And in doing so, inspired countless others to do the same.
Think about what that meant at a time when Black women were often marginalized or stereotyped. She presented a powerful image of Black womanhood to the world.
Strong, confident, beautiful. She understood the importance of representation.
Showcasing the beauty and diversity of African culture. More than just a singer, a cultural ambassador.
Breaking down barriers,
Okay.
winning people's hearts and minds.
Her life was a testament to staying true to yourself. No matter the pressure to conform,
Right.
her authenticity and that unwavering commitment to her African heritage. So inspiring. It's amazing to think about all she accomplished, but she always remained grounded.
Always Mama Africa.
Exactly.
The beauty of her legacy. A global icon who never forgot where she came from.
Used her platform to uplift her people, shine a light on the African continent.
And to inspire generations to come, she did it all with grace, dignity, and an unyielding spirit.
Her story is truly one for the ages. A reminder that one voice can make a difference.
And that even in the face of immense challenges, hope and resilience can prevail.
And her music. Those rhythms, that voice. Those clicks.
Oh, yeah. They're a testament to the enduring power of art.
Connecting us, inspiring us, reminding us of our shared humanity.
It's hard to believe she's been gone for over 15 years.
Her music still touches lives, though. And her legacy of activism lives on in all those fighting for a more just world.
Her absence is felt, but her spirit lives on through her music and her impact.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive into Miriam Makeba's life. What are some key takeaways, things you hope listeners will carry with them?
Well, I think one of the most important lessons is that our voices matter. We all have a voice, and we can use it to speak out against injustice.
To amplify the voices of those who are marginalized.
To push for a more just and equitable world, Makeba showed us that even one voice can make a difference.
That even when faced with huge obstacles, we have the power to inspire change.
And we don't have to wait for a platform or a microphone to make our voices heard. We can start in our own communities.
Supporting organizations that align with our values, having those tough conversations with family and friends.
Finding those small acts of courage in our everyday lives, choosing to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Another takeaway, the power of resilience. Makeba faced unimaginable challenges, but she never gave up.
Never lost sight of her goals, never stopped fighting. Her story reminds us that even when things are tough, we can choose to keep going.
To persevere, to find a way to make a difference.
Resilience isn't about being immune to hardship. It's about finding the strength to keep moving forward.
Even when it feels impossible. And it's about allowing ourselves to feel the full range of emotions, the grief, the anger, without letting them consume us.
Finding that inner strength, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and lean on others for support.
And I think it's also important to remember the power of cultural representation.
Makeba was so proud to be an ambassador for African culture.
She used her platform to showcase the beauty and diversity of her heritage.
It's crucial to celebrate our own cultures and traditions, to share them with the world, to challenge those narrow definitions of beauty and success.
Embrace your heritage, your individuality, your unique voice. Don't be afraid to be different, to stand out, to challenge the status quo.
And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to make a difference. You don't need to be perfect or have a huge platform. Just be willing to show up, speak your truth, and use your voice to create positive change. It's about finding those small acts of courage in our everyday lives. Those moments when we can choose to stand up for what's right, even if it feels difficult.
Another takeaway is the power of resilience. Makeba faced unimaginable challenges in her life, but she never gave up, never lost sight of her goals, and never stopped fighting for what she believed in. Her story is such a powerful reminder that even when things get tough, we can choose to keep going, to persevere, and to find a way to make a difference.
I think that's a great point. Resilience isn't about being immune to hardship. It's about finding the strength to keep moving forward, even when it feels impossible. And allowing ourselves to feel the full spectrum of emotions that come with facing adversity, the grief, the anger, the frustration, but without letting those emotions consume us.
It's about finding that inner strength and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to lean on others when we need support. And I think it's also important to remember the power of cultural representation. Makeba was such a proud ambassador for African culture.
Right.
And she used her platform to showcase the beauty and diversity of her heritage.
That's so important. Her story reminds us that it's essential to celebrate our own cultures and traditions, to share them with the world, and to challenge those really narrow definitions of beauty and success that are often imposed on us.
Embrace your heritage, your individuality, your unique voice. Don't be afraid to be different, to stand out, to challenge the status quo.
And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to make a difference. You don't need to be perfect or have a massive platform. You just need to be willing to show up, to speak your truth, and to use your voice to create positive change.
As we've been unpacking all this information about Makeba's life, I keep coming back to this quote from her. People say I sing politics, but what I sing is not politics. It is the truth. What do you think about that?
It's such a powerful statement, right? I think for me, it speaks to the way she used her music to challenge the status quo, to give a voice to those who were silenced, and to share her own lived experiences under apartheid. For her, the personal was deeply political, and she never shied away from using her art to expose the truth about the injustices that were happening in South Africa.
And she did it all with such grace, dignity, and humanity. It makes me wonder, though, how things might have been different if she hadn't been forced into exile. Would she have reached that same level of global recognition? Would her message have reached such a wide audience?
That's a really thought-provoking question, isn't it? It's hard to say for sure, but exile, as difficult as it was, definitely played a big part in shaping her identity and amplifying her voice. It pushed her to confront injustice on a global scale, connect with a wider network of activists and artists, and become this symbol of hope and resistance for people all over the world.
Her story is full of these unexpected twists and turns that ultimately shaped her journey. For example, did you know that after she was allowed to return to the U.S., she actually appeared on The Cosby Show?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. It's a great example of how she could bridge cultural divides and connect with all sorts of people. She was comfortable in both the world of activism and popular entertainment, always finding new ways to share her message and her music.
Truly a force of nature.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe she's been gone for over 15 years now, but her music continues to inspire and uplift people all around the world.
Her absence is definitely felt. But her legacy lives on not just in her music, but also in the many individuals and organizations that are carrying on her fight for the causes that she championed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Miriam Makeba's amazing life, I want to encourage everyone listening to go out and experience her music for themselves. If you haven't heard her sing, you're really in for a treat.
Absolutely. There's so much to explore from her early hits like Pata Pata and the Click Song to her later albums like Sangoma and Homeland. Every single one tells a story, reflects a chapter in her life, and really showcases the power and versatility of her voice.
And as you're listening, think about the woman behind the music. The woman who fought for freedom, challenged injustice, and inspired millions with her voice and her spirit. Miriam Makeba's legacy reminds us that we can all make a difference in the world, that our voices do matter, and that even when we face incredible challenges, hope and resilience can win in the end.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into Miriam Makeba's life, I think you'll really appreciate some of the other deep dives we've done here at the All Sorts podcast. We have episodes on all sorts of things: history, science, culture, music, the list goes on.
Yeah, there's really something for everyone. So make sure to check out our past episodes, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss any of our future deep dives.
And don't forget to connect with us on X, Instagram, and Threads. We love hearing from you and sharing all sorts of interesting stuff.
Thanks for coming with us on this journey into Miriam Makeba's world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that spirit of Mama Africa alive in your heart.
Yeah, and you know what's so powerful about that quote is that she wasn't afraid to speak her truth even when it was risky, even when it meant alienating people or putting herself in danger. And I think that's something we can all learn from her.
Absolutely. It's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard, even when you face pushback.
Yeah.
It makes you think, though, how would things have played out differently if she hadn't been forced into exile? Could she have achieved the same global recognition if she'd stayed in South Africa?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's impossible to know for sure. But exile, as difficult as it was, definitely played a major role in shaping her path. It forced her to confront injustice on a global level, to connect with a much wider network of activists and artists, and to become a symbol of hope for people all over the world.
It's like exile unintentionally gave her a bigger platform and allowed her message to reach so many more people.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, something else is kind of wild. After she was finally allowed back into the U.S., guess what she did?
I don't know. Tell me.
She was a guest star on The Cosby Show.
Really? No way.
Yeah. It just shows how she could move between these different worlds. The world of activism and then pop culture.
Right. It's pretty amazing.
She really was in a league of her own. It's hard to believe it's been over 15 years since she passed away, but her music still has that power to inspire and uplift people all around the globe.
Her absence is definitely felt, but her legacy is very much alive. Not just through her incredible music, but also through all the people and organizations who are carrying on the torch and fighting for the causes that were so close to her heart.
It's a legacy that will hopefully continue to inspire generations to come. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Miriam Makeba's life, I want to encourage everyone listening to go and experience her music for themselves. If you've never heard her sing, you're in for a real treat.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole world to discover, from those early hits like Pata Pata and the Click Song to her later albums like Sangoma and Homeland. Every single one tells a story, reflects a different stage in her life, and showcases that raw power and versatility in her voice.
And as you're listening to her music, really take a moment to think about the woman behind those songs. The woman who fought tirelessly for freedom, who challenged injustice, and who inspired millions with her powerful voice and her incredible spirit. Miriam Makeba's legacy is a reminder that every single one of us can make a difference in the world, that our voices truly do matter, and that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience have the power to win in the end.
Beautifully said. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Miriam Makeba, I bet you'll love some of the other fascinating deep dives we've done here at the All Sorts podcast.
We've covered so many different topics, from history and science to culture and music. There's really something for everyone.
Oh, definitely.
So make sure to check out our past episodes, and while you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That way you won't miss out on any of our future deep dives.
And hey, don't forget to connect with us over on X, Instagram, and Threads. We always love hearing from you and sharing all sorts of cool and interesting things.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Miriam Makeba. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the spirit of Mama Africa alive in your hearts.